It's good to be with you again. I want to present a marriage lesson this morning, and yet the principles we'll look at will apply to the relationships you're in, whatever they are, even your friend relationships in the workplace. When we attend weddings, maybe we've been in a wedding or two, we hear words very familiar to us. Do you take this woman or man to be your lawful wedded husband or wife? To have and to hold from this day forward, for better or worse, richer or poorer, to love and to cherish till death do us part. We know that marriage is the oldest institution in the world, and we know that it was ordained by God in the very beginning in the Garden of Eden. And throughout the ministry of Christ, when marriage issues would come up, he would take them back to the very beginning, to Genesis 2, beginning at verse 23. This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, for she has been taken out of man. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and they will become one flesh. We need to set into place some basic principles, and love and respect are what come from these verses. It's a relationship that can be based on something that can last forever. And sometimes when we begin a relationship and it leads to marriage, we think that we love each other, we like each other's company, and it just seems like we're supposed to get married. And I would encourage you to realize that that is not always the truth. Liking each other, great. Enjoying each other's company, great. But it has so much to do with keeping God's will in your life. And two people who are striving to live according to God's will have the kind of marriage that God would want them to have. And I want us to begin with a communication code. It's very basic in these verses, and it's important for our relationships. The communication code is this: love is her deepest need, and respect is his deepest need. The verses tell us the husband is to love his wife, and the wife is to respect her husband. It's as clear as it possibly can be. And we find out the problem is, and the cycle begins, that without love, she reacts without respect. And without respect, the husband reacts without love. And so it's a cycle that has to be broken by one or both of the mates. Go ahead, there we go. Go ahead and advance that. We need to look at the principles and we need to relate to them as we should. Let's define love and let's see how the love cycle is beginning. Love is not saying, I love you so often. And love is not necessarily saying the right thing all the time. For the wife, love is also what we do. Love affects the actions that we relate to our wife, to our spouse. It's the actions, not only the words. And the things we say, those kind acts during the day, opening the door, please and thank you, I appreciate you, thank you for all the good things you do for this family. All of those words mean something, but the actions associated with them are also very, very important. And without love, the husband does not get the respect that he needs. And let's look at the cycle. Here is this wife, and she doesn't sense that her husband enjoys her company. He never does anything kind toward her, or not very often. The things he does don't match sometimes the words that he would say. And so she has difficulty respecting someone who's not kind. She has trouble respecting someone who treats her in such a horrible way in her mind. Love involves actions and words, kind actions. And the wife has to have them. The wife needs them. It's her deepest need to feel loved and appreciated, and the actions back up the words. And how in the world can I respect that? And she won't go any further because she doesn't receive from him the love actions, the love that she needs in her life. And the cycle sets into place. The cycle is set into place. And without respect, the relationship goes off the rails in a hurry. The husband is head of the house. The husband has a great number of things that need to be a part of his life. Love toward his wife has to be ingrained in their relationship so as to give her the things she needs most. But he's not going to respond in a loving way if he doesn't feel as if his wife respects him. And that doesn't mean saluting him in the morning. It doesn't mean doing everything perfect, but at least her actions and her words show a deep respect for the relationship that they have, his place in it, and his place in the home. I thought coming down here something that's not in my notes. In 1 Peter 3, we're told that a Christian wife has the ability to convert a non-Christian husband or bring back an unfaithful Christian husband by her actions. Without words, Peter tells us that that Christian wife has the ability to convert or to bring back her husband without words. And always looking at those verses talk more about what's not given to us compared to maybe what would be given. First and foremost, when that husband who's not a member, doesn't attend, or has lost faithfulness, when he's not part of the spiritual, religious actions of that couple, she is not to nag him to death. Without words means no nagging. And it doesn't give the wife permission to lead the household. He is the head of the house. So there's no nagging, and she is not to lead, and she's not to leave. And it's very strong admonition from the negative point of view because of what it tells us in the positive. Well, you know the cycle. She's not getting the love that she needs, and he's not getting the respect that he needs. And we've all, in our work, in our circumstances, whatever they are, we've all heard and responded to the definition of insanity. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over, expecting a different result. It's insanity for the wife who needs love to not receive it. And it's insanity for the husband who needs respect and not receive it. And the cycle goes round and round and round and round. And sometimes it goes into its first decade, into a second decade. And by then, the couple have decided to stay together even though they don't enjoy each other's company for the sake of the children. And the best gift we can give our children is have a loving husband and a respectful wife. That's the greatest gift we could give them. It's a cycle that does not break until someone does. And let me be sure to say what I've said in a stronger sense. Wives, you are to respect your husband if you don't feel as if he's acting loving toward you. And husbands, you're to love your wife and look out for her good intentions, even if you're not receiving the respect that you deserve and need. And let's realize the verse is telling us her greatest need and his greatest need. I shared this lesson a number of years ago, and I had one of the three elders of a congregation in Arizona come up and say to me, Gary, I needed that lesson. It reminded me it's a lesson we all need, whatever our circumstances, if we've gotten into a cycle that's not what it ought to be. And let me tell you something about us guys. I'll speak for us. Ladies, don't punch your husband and don't shout amen. We sometimes don't say the things that we ought to. We act as if, well, I told you the day we got married that I loved you, and I'll tell you something different if I change my mind. Or we would say to the husband, to the wife, why are we no longer sitting close to each other in the car like we used to when we date? And the wife is saying it in a very forthcoming way. She would like for there to be that closeness, that flirty nature, if you will, that's there when we're trying to convince someone to fall in love with us, perhaps marry us for life. And the husband just kind of says, well, I haven't moved. You're the one who moved. And it wasn't the position in the car that she was trying to tell you about. Our wives need us to be soft and tender, and they need us to show that we love them. Guys, do better. Do better. And the result will show. Here's a card sent by a husband who wanted to say some things to his wife. The husband sends this card. This is what I'm really saying every time I say, I love you. Guys, let's take a hint. And inside the words, I'm really trying to say so much more than those three little words. I'm trying to express so many wonderful feelings about you, the card continues. I'm trying to say that you mean more to me than anyone else in the world. I'm trying to let you know that I adore you and that I cherish the time we spend together. I'm trying to explain that I want you and that I need you and that I get lost in wonderful thoughts every time I think about you. And each time I whisper, I love you, I'm trying to remind you that you're the nicest thing that has ever happened to me. Wives, wouldn't you love to get that card? Wouldn't you love to get that card? And even better than that, wouldn't you love to be married to someone that expresses with their words and their actions those words? To lift you up, the queen of the house we sang earlier and spoke of the role that the wife would have toward the children. But it's certainly there as well for the husband. Well, there is a husband who sent that card to his wife. A few days later, this card was delivered to him. Remember the wonderful card. This is what I mean, and that long list of good things behind the words, I love you. The wife returns with this card a few days later. I love you with all my heart. Inside the words, and my body generally goes where my heart goes. Ah, would you like to get that as a husband? Absolutely. Let me tell you the story of two books. There's a marriage book. The wife got it. She read it. She benefited from it. And she saw some areas in the marriage book that she thought could benefit their relationship. And like many husbands, not to our benefit, not to our credit, the wife usually will look and show interest in 3 marriage books before we pick up the first one. That's just an unfortunate fact. But she thought there's some good things in here that would be great for our marriage. But she knew her husband wasn't one to read marriage books. So she thought, I'll be very subtle about this. And so she put the book on the side of his bedside, on the area there where other things on his side of the bed were kept. And after a few days, she noticed it was still there. And after a few more days, it became very clear it hasn't moved. In fact, when I dusted, that told me he's not looked at that book. And you can imagine what she began to think. It's not fair, but it's what happens. He's not interested in doing anything to better our marriage. He doesn't care about me. He doesn't show an interest in learning about himself and how it can benefit our marriage and the good that it could do if there's children that could benefit the children. Immediately, her mind goes way off into the negative chasm that the marriage book, which never left the bedside, and it's still there. And finally, she removed it. Well, let me tell you about the diet book. She and this husband were going somewhere. It was a special occasion. She pulled out a dress she loved, but she hadn't worn it in a while, and she noticed that it just barely fit. And she knew that it would be okay, and she decided to wear it. But she kind of mumbled to herself, looking at the mirror, this doesn't fit the way it used to fit, she said out loud, not knowing that her husband was a little bit away and was observing all of this and actually heard her comment. He wasn't planning it, but he was in the bookstore looking for other things, probably a Sports Illustrated magazine, and he noticed a shelf of diet books. And he remembered his wife had been concerned that she had gained a little weight and could barely fit into her favorite dress when they were going to this very special place. Guys, you know where I'm going. Girls, you're already realizing the train wreck that's just down the track. He thought he was doing her a favor by buying the diet book for her and giving it to her. And he was shocked at her response. I thought you would be glad to get the diet book. Didn't you try on the dress last month and it didn't fit the way you wanted and you commented to yourself, maybe could you lose a few pounds? I'm helping you. And look at what happens. Both sides of the coin, marriage, diet, husband, wife, come out with these kind of feelings. You do not accept me. You do not approve me. You don't love me unless. It's not a pretty picture. And it's true with both circumstances. Guys, we can do better. We can read and we can listen and we can do the things that would help us to learn more about ourselves and the relationship we're in for the rest of our life and to make it the best marriage that it can possibly be. And we can learn to be more loving, even if it's not necessarily the way we were brought up and it's not something that comes naturally. We can be more loving in our actions. And the respect will follow without question. And you'll have the respect that you want. Let's think for a moment of a marriage report card. Let's acknowledge that no marriage is perfect, and let's realize that there's an overall grade, and you give yourself a grade, and then consider giving the couple a grade. Are you in an A or B or C marriage? Usually in counseling, if you ask a couple, what's your grade for the marriage? The wife's grade is much lower than the husband's. It's just a fact. He thinks it's a B, and to her it may be a D. But that's the reality sometimes of the way it looks to each of us. And ask yourself, will you do anything in an area that could make it better? Will you make that determination? I will do anything I can do as the husband to make the marriage better. Wives, the same question to you. The marriage report, what's the answer? Some of you are sitting here with your couple, with your spouse, and you have to answer the question, are both of you set free to talk about these issues? We as men get defensive. We don't like it. Women need us to hear them out and to not be defensive. At least identify as best you can an area or two that could bear improvement. That's all that this is implying. Being a strong Christian will help us have a happy marriage because Christians are concerned about others. Christians practice love. Christians want the best for others. Christians have a positive sexual ethic. Christians can forgive. Christians make great fathers, great mothers. Christians provide for their own. Christians are kind and unselfish, and they honor and respect each other. Gary Smalley passed away a few years ago. One of the leading marriage seminar persons in the religious world. We attended a marriage seminar in South Florida a number of years ago, and he spent most of an hour talking about the word honor. Honor the other person. Honor them. And he went to great depths to help us to appreciate what honor to another person sounds like, looks like. We honor and respect each other. I was in a situation a number of years ago when a congregation was adding elders. And they realized after the fact, when something happened, that maybe we need to go about the elder selection process slightly different. We almost never go and check the reputation of that man in the workplace. Titus and Timothy encourage us that we need to do that. What is our reputation outside? And the workplaces where we might find out about that. But on this occasion, on a Sunday morning, we came to a building and we found out that the elder and his wife had had a difficulty the night before. And the only reason we knew it is because the wife had left around 10 at night and gone to one of the other elders and his wife's house because they had been in another argument, and he had reached into a cabinet behind him and pulled out a china plate and thrown it at her and almost hit her in the face. I was told about it on Monday morning when one of the elders came and told me about it. Did you notice that so and so wasn't here? I did. I was going to check on him this week. Well, here's what happened. You need to know it. And after telling me that had happened and it wasn't something brand new, I said we need to do a better job of asking the wives in private if the husband is worthy of being a shepherd of this congregation. We need to ask them outside of their presence, should your husband be an elder here? And ask them to be very truthful to you. On that Monday morning, when the elder came and told me of the situation, I said, well, I would like to ask you to be sure that you do this week. Whoever's going to meet with the couple, or especially meet with the elder, let him know that he can no longer serve in that capacity. And hopefully he's willing to come to the front pew and he's willing to resign the office and ask for forgiveness for his action and begin the process of regaining the trust of his wife. And we're not going to share this information with everybody. But he needs to do that publicly because several people already know. And he did. And he moved forward. And their marriage continued until death do they part. Salvation is in the mix sometimes. Dwight Moody said, if I wanted to find out whether a man was a Christian, I wouldn't go to his minister, I wouldn't go to others, I would go and talk to his wife. If a man doesn't treat his wife right, I don't want to hear him talk about Christianity. What is the use of talking about salvation for the next of life if he has no salvation for this life because of his sinful actions toward his wife? And obviously he's not talking about someone who just doesn't smile in the morning or was rude one afternoon. We want a Christianity that goes into our homes and everyday lives. The husband needs respect. The wife needs love actions, not just words. Another card, the I believe card. I believe that we are magic, that all things are possible, that life is precious, that peace is reasonable, that laughter is special, that blessings are divine, that love is grand, and that you're the best thing that ever happened to me. I love you. We would like to get that card, wouldn't we? Wouldn't we want that to speak of the relationship we're in marriage? Some quick points. Make a commitment. Remember your wedding promise, till death do us part. And if they will renew the effort, 80% or 86% of the people who say they were unhappy 5 years ago. It's not something that happens quickly, and it's something that will not go away. Commitment lets us work through the problem. Secondly, make it a priority. Continue to work at the marriage. The greatest gift we can give our children is for them to see a mother and a father love each other. Interviews have been conducted with freshmen in universities, and they've told us over and over they missed that in their home. Thirdly, make marriage fun. There are middle-age crises that come about, and because of that, sometimes the fun goes out of the marriage. It's all work and no play, and that's not the design that God had in mind. Ecclesiastes 9, verse 9, enjoy life with the wife of your youth, Solomon said. God wants us to enjoy life, and He wants us to enjoy it if we're married. with the person to whom we're married. And the Song of Solomon tells us to enjoy sex. And hopefully the building's not going to crumble because that word is used here. Sex. It's God's gift to a married couple. And finally, learn to have fun with only a little bit of money. Doesn't cost a lot to get in the car and go find an ice cream cone somewhere. And it's not so much the ice cream or the cost, but the fact that you're taking time to be together and have something to say to one another. And let it be pleasant. And let it be something you schedule and do often. Number 4, learn to communicate, learn to talk, and learn to fight. Learn to listen, learn to talk, be friends first, and learn to fight fair. Fighting fair is not blowing up and then walking out the door and not standing there and giving the other person a chance to say something. It doesn't need to be loud and it doesn't need to be in anger. But fighting fair means that you get some things off your chest. Maybe that's the best way you can do it. But you stand there and let the other person also get some things off their chest. And you don't do it in anger. We actually know a couple years ago who said this: my wife and I have never had an argument. They didn't have children. They never did. But they said early in their marriage, and it was several years in, we've never had an argument. Later, I came to realize probably it meant that she never was made to feel comfortable to say anything negative to her husband. There was never an openness for them to communicate issues between the two. It wasn't worth it. He would get defensive and nothing would come of it. And guys, all of us in the marriage relationship have had to learn how to do that. It's not something that comes easy for most of us as men, as husbands. Number 5, deal with your demons. Find out what you're doing that harms the marriage and do whatever is necessary to heal it. Is it the fact that one of the two is a dictator? Is it financial irresponsibility? Is it a temper? Is it pornography? Each of those major issues. Is there substance abuse in the marriage? You name it, get the help is what's being encouraged. And number 6, finally, have God at the center. From God, we learn the marriage skills of kindness and forgiveness and unconditional love and unfaithfulness. God will help us in whatever area we need in our marriage relationship. Find someone who you respect, spiritually speaking, and get advice. Begin with prayers for yourself, maybe confession of sin, and start over. Whatever it takes, get the help that you need to make the marriage better. I want to read you the words to a song. Kenny Rogers wrote and sings this song. In no other sermon do I ever quote Kenny Rogers. It's not that I had anything against him prior to his death. We heard him in person a number of years ago. Great concert. Listen to the words of this song and see if they don't say perfectly exactly what you've just listened to me say for about 35 minutes. The name of the song, Buy Me a Rose. He works hard to give her all he thinks she wants. A 3-car garage, her own credit cards. He pulls in late to wake her up with a kiss goodnight. If he could only read her mind, she would say, buy me a rose, call me from work, open a door for me. What would it hurt? Show me you love me by the look in your eyes. These are the little things I need the most in my life. The husband, now the days have grown to years of feeling all alone, and she can't help but wonder what she's doing wrong. Because lately she'd do anything to turn his head. Would it make a difference if she said, buy me a rose, call me from work, open a door for me? What would it hurt? Show me you love me by the look in your eyes. These are the little things I need the most in my life. And the more that he lives, the less that he tries to show her the love that he holds inside. And the more that she gives, the more that he sees this is a story of you and me. So I bought you a rose on the way home from work to open the door to the heart that I hurt. And I hope you notice this look in my eyes, because I'm going to make things right, he said, for the rest of your life. I'm going to hold you tonight, do all those little things for the rest of your life. Go find the song, play it around your house as a couple, and make your marriage better. She needs your love. He needs your respect. Break the cycle if it's going the other direction. Guys, be different than your mother if that's what you grew up watching. Gals, the same thing. Whatever you grew up watching, change the cycle if it's not described in the love and the respect needs identified from God. God wants and needs our marriages to be the best they can be. This congregation needs our marriages to be the best they can be. And this community needs you to be the best husband or wife that you can be. And if that's not the case now, the relationships that you have with others can benefit with loving acts and respect. It works for all of us in so many areas of life. If we can help you this morning, we stand to sing a song of encouragement. If we can study with you, if we can counsel with you, whatever the need, make it known while we stand and sing a song of encouragement.